As we join the action, we are actually going to join in game number 3, the deciding game. Kowalski having taken the first game very quickly, and Carvalho also taking the second game in just a few minutes. So we'll see who wins out of these two great players.
Yeah, Grzegorz is on this Sultai build. I actually had a chance to help test with his team and kind of work on this list. It's we've prepared for Mono Red a decent amount, and this is an excellent hand and start for him, but it is still a bit of a rough matchup. So getting the first game great, as it does give him an opportunity to definitely at least be on the play in the third game here, as we're seeing, and that makes such a difference when you're trying to curve out like this.
Elspeth's Nightmare drawn right on time to take care of that Fervent champion. Let's look at what Marcio is working with. We see 2 copies of Anax Harden in the Forge, Bone Crusher Giant, and another Robber of the Rich.
Yeah, and Greg also gets a look at what Marcio's working with thanks to the second chapter of Elsa's Nightmare. So he's going to know that he doesn't have to worry about something like an Ember Cleave, at least for the time being, which means that he can make binding down this Anax and essentially force Marcio to redeploy another one, only giving him 1 token. Playing Polukranos here is a bit awkward, as thanks to the copy of Stomp in Marcio's hand, Polukranos is just trading with Anax, and that does allow Marcio to use his mana more efficiently, going for a line that involves playing Robber of the Rich plus the Stomp, and both creatures would just trade with Polukranos. So I think from Greg, binding the Old Gods must be the most tempting play here, and this can also curve into a sequence where he can play Polukranos, maybe leaving up Jwari Disruption, and then directly into an Alrund's Epiphany to try to snowball the game in his favor.
Marcio just finds a 1-mana 1/1 Fireblade Charger. It's going to come out onto the battlefield, followed by that second copy of Anax. Vorinclex the draw for Gregors.
Yeah, Vorinclex, it's just a big dumb creature here, but at this stage in the game, in this matchup, all you're really looking for from Greg is a big dumb creature. You just want to slow down these attackers from Marcio, and Polukranos does that, Vorinclex does that, so I don't as a tap land as well, and that means that at least guaranteed he has his 6-drop next turn. Maybe even with an untapped land, he's able to go Alrund's Epiphany into Vorinclex and really gum up the board in his favor.
Not sure Vorinclex would appreciate the slight on its intelligence there from you, Mani.
He is a very intelligent Phyrexian Praetor, so I should perhaps show a bit more respect than I am.
All right, Marcio Carvalho weighing up his options. This Robert the Rich is poised to, maybe get some value here for Marcio if he fancies attacking it into that Polychronos.
Yeah, Gregorz does have the luxury of working with perfect information here. Marcio has played every card he has drawn since that copy of Elspeth's Nightmare Chapter 2 went off. And for Greg, the only block he has here that doesn't risk losing the Polukranos is the 1/1 Satyr token. Every other creature combined with that Bone Crusher Giant Stomp mode would actually destroy Polukranos. But considering Greg knows that there's no Ember Cleave follow-up, there's not that much damage, I think he can afford to take 7 here down to 10 and just trade with that Satyr.
Mani, can you talk us through the interaction between Polukranos and the Bone Crusher Giant for those of us who maybe aren't as au fait with the rules?
Sure. So with Bone Crusher Giant Stomp, it says damage can't be prevented. And Polukranos has a replacement clause where if damage would be dealt to it, it prevents that damage and removes that many +1/+1 counters on it instead. However, when Stomp gets cast and says damage can't be prevented, it essentially results in Polukranos taking double damage for the remainder of that turn. It's going to remove a counter from the damage being dealt to it and still take the damage that it can no longer prevent. So actually, even the 1/1 Satyr, thanks to the double damage, would trade with the Polukranos, meaning he should just be blocking the largest creature if he's planning on blocking as he does.
Yeah, Kowalski finds the line. Going to trade off with that Anax, but of course Anax is leaving behind 2 of those Satyr tokens thanks to its power being above 4. Kowalski does not find the 7th land.
Yeah, he does find the next best follow-up in that if he finds the 7th land at any point, he is going to be able to play Alrund's Epiphany into Emergent Ultimatum, and Vorinclex going to do a good job of holding down the fort here, at least for a bit. Things can get dicey pretty quickly. There are a lot of attackers. Robert of the Rich is still triggering, so should he take something good, that is not something good. Marcio could do some damage, but at the moment, Grzegorz should be still liking his position, assuming he can draw a land in short order.
Just the one unknown card in Marcio's hand for Kowalski, and obviously, anytime you're playing against this mono red deck, the big looming threat in your mind has always got to be Embercleave. But Kowalski saying, I'm just going to block this Robber of the Rich, and if you have the Embercleave, it's going to be a trade.
Yeah, it looks like considering forcing through some extra damage with the Boulder Rush on Rimrock Knight, maybe doing it on the Fireblade Charger, or he could just continue going wide, deploy both Bonecrusher Giant and Rimrock Knight if he wants, or even just cast this Cultivate. But I think from Marcio's side, you need more pressure.
You might need more pressure, Marnie, but the feeling of casting your opponent's cards is just so scintillating.
Yeah, if you do Cultivate, you do get to cast Bonecrusher Giant as well, which is what Marcio is considering. Do you want to deploy both these creatures, or do you want to go Cultivate plus Bonecrusher Giant? It does thin your deck for 2 more lands, increasing the likelihood by some percentage points of drawing a non-land card next turn, which in Marcio's position, a high-impact non-land card is what he needs. But again, going wide is just so tempting, considering Grzegorz hasn't really shown that the cards in his hand currently do anything if his best play was just Vorinclex last turn.
So, Marnie, for those of us not from Quandrix College, what is the percentage point increase of thinning out 2 lands?
I believe I'm a Prismari. I also can't do the math for you on that one.
Okay,
What I
alright.
can do the math on is 6 + 1 is 7, and Grzegorz hand is unlocked.
Let's go!
That's
Fabled
the extent
Passage.
of my mathematical abilities.
Well, you know, Silvercourt College is just standing here making snide remarks, so yeah, I don't know. We are not any help in the mathematical department either, but what we do both know is that Kowalski can now make that play you were talking about a few turns ago, Marnie, and fire off this Alrund's Epiphany into the Emergent Ultimatum next turn.
Yeah, we do see a bit of a pause, and perhaps just going for the ultimatum can get something like Shadow's Verdict, Greater Gargaroth plus Epiphany here, either removing the board and having a Gargaroth plus Vorinclex, or just saying, okay, well, you want to give me an extra turn with either of these threats? I'm okay with that. So this is a really powerful ultimatum from Grzegorz. Either way, he's going to either leave Marcio with absolutely nothing or get another turn, which, thanks to the Epiphany in his hand, would lead to then another turn. So I honestly think the Sultai has just got this at this point. There's no real route to victory for Marcio.
Is there any temptation to go for the care back there? There are a lot of X1s on the other side of the battlefield.
There's certainly a temptation, but I think in this position, in a tough matchup, you want to just make sure you're going for the definitively best line, and this line just leaves no opportunity for Marcio. I really like the discipline that Grzegorz has shown in this game, just the turn 4 binding to get rid of that Anax and force Marcio to maybe make some minus tempo plays in order to have a board presence, bought Grzegorz the time he needed to get the game to this exact state, and now there's just no real out for Marcio. You see him really struggling with what to give him, and this looks good on the surface. You get to keep your board, but bad news, there's another Epiphany. You are just lethal between these 3 turns that Grzegorz is going to take in a row.
So here's that first turn. Vorinclex coming in. Marcio down to 14. And then this is the turn that is coming off the Epiphany that came off the Emergent Ultimatum.
This is a bit of a slow roll. I think if Grzegorz should just cast that Epiphany at the start of the turn, Marcio would have conceded. But I appreciate getting your maximum value, and now you're going to say, all right, well, your creature can't attack, and I have approximately 19 damage here. I think we're okay.
I'm glad we didn't have to find out how accurate your approximation was, Manny, as that is going to do it. Grzegorz Kowalski with Sultai Ultimatum taking down Mono Red Aggro, which is traditionally kind of a bad matchup for this deck.